Face to Face on Pravasi Channel, brought to you by Plan for Peace of Mind. Make your choices now. South Park Funeral Home. Personal consultation available by appointment. Call Sunil John Kora, the Community Relations Director, for an appointment at 1-813-409-9050.
Our Associate Judge, Mrs. Jetty Abraham. We have municipal courts, justice courts, where you would do. Welcome to Face on IndiaLife TV and Pravasi Channel. My name is Anz Samuel. I will be your host for the show. Today, I have a special guest. It's none other than our Associate Judge, Mrs. Jetty Abraham, for the 387th District Court in Fort Bend County, Texas, a part of Greater Houston region. She's also a Malayali. Welcome, Judge, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Judge Abraham, for the viewers who may not be familiar with the U.S. legal system, can you explain the general setup of Texas court system and what exactly an associate judge does in Texas District Court?
Sure. But before I do that, let me thank you for having me on Face to Face, the show. I'm honored to be here. Just like I'm honored to have been recently appointed as an associate judge for the 387th District Court in Fort Bend County, Texas, U.S. So basically, in the U.S., particularly in Texas, the Constitution creates certain courts. We have municipal courts, justice courts, where you would do traffic tickets or up to certain class C crimes, or small claims court. Thereafter, you have constitutional courts, or what is called statutory county courts at law. Now, they will handle other things such as class A and B misdemeanor crimes and some other civil cases up to, I want to say, $250,000 limits. After that, it's a district court, such as a court that I'm sitting in, and that has much more certain other cases that go there. I'm part of what's called a general jurisdiction district court that actually focuses right now on family law. And so we handle all family law matters in Texas, like domestic cases involving some real tough situations, such as children issues, child issues, divorce issues, protective orders, anything involving the family. That is what we do. So what happens is every court, such as in a district court, has it's an elected position, and the presiding judge is the main judge. My presiding judge his name is Oscar Telfair III. So every presiding judge in the district court level has an associate judge that they can appoint. This appointment came to me. I was not expecting it. I didn't apply for it. I was working at the district attorney's office at that time as a public prosecutor for the same county, but as a public prosecutor. Before that, I was a family law attorney for many, many years, decades. About 18 years. And then I went to work as a public prosecutor for almost 7 years. And this presiding judge, I guess, knew of my work and things such as that. So he asked me to be his appointed associate judge. So what does the associate judge do? Associate judge does almost exactly what a presiding judge does, yet he'll assign me cases, and he will assign the limits of what I need to do. But I hear cases, I rule on evidence, I make decisions on contested matters. Basically, I rule on cases.
That's awesome. The- Judge Abraham, so how does your role differ from that of an elected district court judge?
So that's the presiding judges have to be elected by the general public in that particular county. and they work hard for it. So he's necessarily my presiding judge, Oscar Telfair, is the main judge of the 387th court. So I work at his pleasure. So it is it's not a good analogy, but what you can somewhat compare it to, not exactly. Like the president will appoint a vice president and things such as that, but there's no automatic succession or anything like that. I was appointed by the presiding to help the court docket, to help the court systems that we have in the U.S. We're able to have two particular judges, but he's my head judge. Then after our district courts, there's like the Court of Appeals. Then there's a Texas Supreme Court. There's a Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Then obviously, all of the higher U.S. Courts of Appeals, federal courts, and then the Supreme Court of the United States.
Gotcha. All right. Like you said, family law is deeply emotional and often complex. So, what guiding principles help you to make fair and compassionate decisions?
Compassion is actually really big in the 387th. Compassion, I don't know how else any of us who are in the human dynamics world can function in any profession that deals with humanity without compassion. But the rule of law, that is always the same. The rule of law is always the uniform procedures that we use. But when you actually apply it to an individual, it's not theoretical anymore, right? It's actually applying it to an individual. That is when our personal integrity, our value system comes in. And so for me, compassion is number one, but I'm always guided by my faith. How I'm Christian. And so within Christianity, there's all these teachings that I've been formed with, by not only by my family, but my Achins, my Marthama church. Originally, I'm from Orthodox church, so my Orthodox Achins, and now my Marthama Achins. So there's everything we do has an impact, a reverberating impact in the God's world. And so therefore, when somebody comes in front of me with their case, the first thing I do is look into their eyes. They're humans. I look into their eyes. They're just not a case file. I look right into their eyes, even if the ruling is difficult, because the rule of law is stable and consistent. I have to apply the rule of law. But to the individual, even if it's a tough ruling, I look right into their eye because they deserve that respect.
That's good. You are very religious and spiritual as well, right?
I'm just a fallen human, but I lean towards those that have guided me, and I still lean on them.
That's good. So many immigrant families, including Malayalis, may not be fully understand how family law works in Texas. What are some common misconceptions you see?
You know, um, we have in our community, our Malayali community, we have our cultural norms, right? നമ്മുടെ ഓൺ മനുഷ്യരോട് നമ്മൾ പറയും നമ്മുടെ problems and അച്ഛൻ ഇത് പറ്റി അത് പറ്റി, can you help me with this? And there's some strength to that community uniformity. There's some strength of support to that. However, the law doesn't change for Malayalis, right? The law is the same when you come into court. And so when they come into court, automatically you think, oh, the mom is going to get custody of the children. Let's say a tragedy is happening. Let's say the family's breaking down, right? And there's a lot of science behind different things. But honestly, what the judges care about, what we care about in our courtroom, my judge, Judge Telfair and I, we know the parents, the adults are having some difficulty and they're going to break up. But our foremost concern is the child and the child's best interest. And that means what the child is going through, their access to their siblings, what the siblings are going through. We holistically look at the children first. And then we apply best interest standards that the law has, is called statutory law, or case law has. And then we apply it to them. And as much as our heart may be breaking for the parents, our foremost is the children.
Gotcha. So if they are minor that they cannot take any decisions, how do you deal with that, those cases?
and, and that's real difficult when the Texas law. There are some laws that where a child is at a certain age, there's something called choice of conservatorship. Like a you think a child can decide, hey, I want to live with dad or I want to live with mom if there's a custody battle, but it's not that simple. Um, because we have to also be concerned about parents influencing their child, right? Oh, there's no rules in my house, so of course you're going to say you want to live with me as the fun dad or the fun mom. No, children's input to a certain extent is important. In fact, the law allows us to confer with the children in chambers. For instance, in family court, we don't bring the children in there into the witness stand, we don't even let them come inside the courtroom without permission, prior permission. However, the lawyers for the parents can file something called motion to confer, meaning like they want the judges to meet with the children back in chambers outside of the courtroom, because it is trauma upon trauma to have a child sit on the witness stand and answer questions. Now, in the criminal law world, children sometimes do have to take the stand, but there's a lot of social services assistance for that, depending on the type of crime. But in the family law cases, there's something called an amicus attorney that can be appointed that only determines the best interest of the child, does not work for father, does not work for mother, just only get some facts to determine best interest of the child to assist a judge in the courtroom, because I can't get off the bench and go visit the child, right? So
Right.
they'll bring facts that I can take a look at. So we are very protective of children, very protective of children.
Judge, so there are other issues like domestic violence and parental rights, which is very sensitive. So how do Texas courts approach these matters?
So Texas law, it's interesting because before I became a judge, when I was working at the district attorney's office, I did a different type of public prosecution of different crimes. But my last stint before I became a judge was in the district attorney's office working in the protective order section. Now, the Texas law has certain laws written if there's violence in the family and somebody needs protection. And so if a lawyer brings the case correctly in front of us, proving that there's violence and has everything together and lawyer tries the case, there's a lot judges can rule on and remedy and provide certain restrictions and prohibitions that actually are enforced by regular law enforcement as soon as we order it. If somebody violates it, law enforcement will get involved. So, domestic violence situations, there are laws to protect it. Simultaneously, there's a lot of nonprofit organization, South Asian organizations too. There are some organizations called DAYA, DAYA. There are these nonprofit. There's Al Tahiri. There's Anis. There's different aid to victims of domestic abuse. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that will try to assist. And there's therapy. Sometimes a family needs, or a victim needs therapy. There's a lot of self-services and support systems out there. But the judges can't overly get involved in those type of things, but we can enforce and apply the law. And the law is written in the state of Texas is pretty protective of victims.
So are the judges giving the punishment or is it law enforcement?
So it's in family courts. It's not the judges who will. When you say punishment, if hypothetically, if a person has a protective order issued against them and they violate it, then they could look at a criminal charge brought by a prosecutor, and a criminal court judge will handle that. But in a family court, if you violate one of our orders, you can be held in contempt of court, or we can, if we don't want to do contempt of court because there is some punishment involved in that, there is some jail time, fines, and different. Let's say we don't want to do contempt, then we can restrict and protect the person more. We can restrict the child and prohibit. So we issue orders, and if you violate orders, somebody has to bring it in front of us for further sanctions or contempt or anything like that.
So, for the Malayali families often balance traditional values with life in new country. Do cultural difference ever play a role in the cases you see?
Very much so. Very much so. Because, first of all, when a family is even splitting up in our community, it's hard on any family. Doesn't matter what culture you're from, splitting up of a family, they liken it to sometimes worsen loss of a loved one, death, because it's just so long. The suffering continues for a while, right? Further than quite a while. But in our community, in our Malayali community, there are a lot of cultural issues, such as there's property back in India, right? We know there's some gifts of gold and sarnam exchanges here and there, and the stress the family in back in India go through, right? There's so much reputational issues that prohibit that add to the stress of already a family, regular families splitting up, because our community is close. Our
Yeah.
community is very close, tight, and because of that there's a lot of goodness, but because of that there's a lot of challenges as well, challenges that transfer into the sea, across the seas, all the way back in
Mhm.
our, Kerala, back in our home.
Right. So, what advice would you give to immigrant families who might be facing marital conflict or custody challenges?
And so so that question, I will say, I have to answer it this way. I'm prohibited now from giving advice because I'm on the
Oh,
judiciary side, right? But
yeah.
what I can say is this: when you come in front of a judge, even with our cultural backgrounds, all the judges, even without somebody looking like me, everybody sees the human that's there, right? But
Mm.
when our community comes in front of me and they see someone that looks like me, they'll probably feel a little bit more comfortable. Oh, നമ്മുടെ
Mm.
own മനുഷ്യരല്ലേ. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they feel a little bit more comfortable. Coming into a courtroom is incredibly stressful for a lot of people,
Mhm.
for and rightly so, unless
Mhm.
you're working there. There's still other work stress then. But when you come into a courtroom as a litigant, there's so much stress. And when they see somebody that looks like them, they feel a little bit better. But what you have to know is that you just reach out to get a support system. Actually, instead of telling that individual, I would ask നമ്മുടെ whole community, please
Mm.
support each other. If you have a friend, or if you know ഒരാൾ ഇങ്ങനെ suffer ചെയ്യുക, that
Mhm.
their family is breaking down for something, if you're unable
Mm.
to help, you don't have to have the answers. Just
Mhm.
don't, let them be alone. And then they come into court stronger. Go talk
Mm.
to, get help of the achin mars as much as you can. And more than
Mm.
that, not more than that, go to the achin mars as much as you can. Have some friends who are not judgmental, who are just
Mm.
there, even if you're silent. Just be
Right.
there for them, because nobody's walking in their shoe. We might have
Mhm.
all these answers, but no one is walking in their shoe. And
Right.
lastly, get a qualified lawyer. A
Mhm.
qualified lawyer that knows family law, but that also knows all of the cultural background issues,
Mm.
the different parts of the United States, auntie and uncle there, one of
Mhm.
them. We're all so connected, and a lawyer needs to know that. But get a qualified lawyer. But come in with strength, because the law, it, you just coming into court tells me that most people are stronger than they realize.
Mhm. Right. Right. So, how important is it for families to understand the local laws rather than relying solely on the cultural norms or community advice?
I think nowadays, all it's very important to know the system you're living in. We're living in the United States. We're living in the state of Texas, so we have the Texas laws that apply, and there's local rules that apply in Fort Bend County. I would not ask anyone to go get a law degree, know all of the law, but what I would
Mm.
say is be familiar with the community leaders, or the community people, or community organizations who can interface a little bit more with the
Mm.
laws of the of this area, right? They may know a little bit more of the laws, but always, I would suggest, always talk to a qualified lawyer more than
Mhm.
anybody else. A qualified lawyer.
Yes.
Support system for sure, which are friends or achins or families. Parli, somebody's from the Parli organizations that help. But technical knowledge of the law, I wouldn't ask anyone to know everything about the law, but definitely talk to a lawyer, a qualified lawyer.
Gotcha. So every judge bring a unique philosophy to the bench. What value guide your decision making?
And I'm not trying to be this perfect religious person when I say all this, but I'll be honest. And my biggest guide is what God would want me to do. Just like any job, right? And you could be in any position, even when I was working as a prosecutor. Every day my boss is God is how I look at it. My boss is God. And there are days I fail. Let me just tell you, I like my if I try my best, but I make a situation and I tell God, okay, God, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So my guiding principle always is what the fundamentals have given us in the Bible. It is from being an associate, and I said this at one of my ceremonies, but I really meant it. I don't. You don't have to be the presiding or the top front runner to really build that wall that Nehemiah, helped build. Right? We all are artisans, craftsmen, or you know TV hosts. We're all creating something for the world, right? And so my part is to put this brick into this wall. And if I'm doing that every day, what I've been taught by my spiritual guides like Achins, my both church Achins, Martha Sabha and the Orthodox Sabha, and my Sunday school teachers, my family, my husband, he's got a really good sense of I find he has a really good sense of ethics, and
Oh,
just my brother, my sister, your my community. Our
mhm.
people have core values, right? That we actually engage in, and so it's not just my studies, it's not just my knowledge or the license that I carry. All that is important. We still study as lawyer. Having a law license, you always forever study. So I'm
Yeah.
still doing that, but the biggest thing is the values and tenets given to me by God, who used Achanmars, Sunday school teachers, my family, my husband.
So thank you, Judge Abraham, for being a part of our face-to-face India Live and Pravasi channel. And it was great talking to you, and we could know more about you. And all the best and best wishes for all your future endeavors.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Face to Face on Pravasi channel, brought to you by Plan for Peace of Mind. Make your choices now. South Park Funeral Home. Planning is determining the details of your funeral and cemetery services in advance. With a plan, you'll reduce stress and financial burden for your loved ones and simply let them honor and celebrate your life, knowing things are happening just as you wanted. Our complete services include cemetery burial spaces, funeral and memorial services, caskets and outer burial containers, memorials, headstones, opening and closing, safely home registered protection, personal consultation available by appointment. Call Sunil John Kora, the Community Relations Director, for an appointment at 1-813-409-9050. Email sunil.kora@nsmg.com, www.southparkfunerals.com.
So, how can a court better support people dealing with language barriers, cultural difference, or limited legal knowledge?
Very good. Yes, a really good, important question. The interesting part is here in Fort Bend County, there's actually a mandate that everyone who comes in who has a different language as their first language, which is not English, has a right to have a court certified translator there. So we have for whatever language, we will get
Mhm.
you. The courts will get. You have to fill out forms and things. The courts will get a translator. So if it's somebody who speaks Malayalam, And
Mm,
legal words in English is not easily translatable in Malayalam. It's truly not,
mm,
unless you're like a PhD in Malayalam language. It's very difficult, And so, nonetheless, a case will not go forward by
mm,
law. A case will not go forward if
yeah.
you say to the court, English is not my first language. I am more,
Mm,
say it in Malayalam. Have a friend say it. Someone
mm,
tell the judge or the court personnel, I can't go forward without somebody from my native tongue being here. And we get a
mm.
court certified or court approved translator for Malayalam,
Gotcha.
Hindi, Urdu, anything you can think
Mm,
of.
gotcha. Okay,
So you're not
that's good.
alone. Just
All
know that
right.
your language barrier, visa, immigration issues will not stop you in a family court. That is not anything that you just come in, we'll get you a translator, we'll get your case heard as to the family law. We will hear your case.
All right. So the legal profession is becoming more diverse. How does representation on the bench impact the community?
I think it benefits the community. I
Mm,
think for me, I believe, because I know some of these judges that we all work with, and every one of them, they really have a care for people, every one of them, regardless of what race they are. But I feel like standing in the community side and looking towards the judges, I feel like the community is more comfortable. If you walk into a courtroom and they can identify with my name, Jetty Abraham, in a very Indian, well, I believe it's Indian, or how
yeah.
I look, especially if I'm in my Indian clothes, not that I'm in my Indian clothes when I'm in the bench. I have to wear a robe,
Yeah.
judicial robe. But
Yeah.
I think when they see me, they're already a tough situation gets a little bit better, a little bit
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. Right. That's good. So just some personal. So tell me more about yourself or what inspired you to pursue a career in law and eventually the judiciary.
I wish I had a grand story as to why I became a lawyer. I actually don't have a wonderful grand story, but I will tell you, I don't, I will tell you the way God works is we all have a natural talent for something that
Yeah.
He's given us. And we may not see what it is initially, but it will come to fruition no matter how long. If you trust Him, give Him your whole. That's what I would say to kids. Trust Him fully and give any children. He will take you to where you're built for what on his time. So ever since I was young, I was into reading, and back in the day
Oh,
it was easier to read because there was no it's not the cell phone world that we have now. So I would
right.
read. I just love history, any kind of history. I love good literature. I would just read whenever I would get a chance, and that continued in my undergraduate college days. I would
Mhm.
like to just read when I would. Not like a star student or anything, but that was fundamental to who I was. And that just grew. It mushroomed. That was my little extra that God gave, and it mushroomed into then going to law school, then working hard. You just, as immigrants, we work. I think there's a lot of people I know that work really hard. You just work hard, work hard, work hard, even when you have challenges, even when you have to take a step back. Keep working hard, keep going forward. And then before you know it, I became a trial lawyer. I was comfortable in a courtroom. Um, I don't know what happens to me when I walk. Happened to me whenever I would walk into a courtroom. I was a completely different person than I am in the hallways. It just was
Mhm.
my forum. It was my courtroom when I was a practicing lawyer, and I was comfortable in a courtroom, and so God helped that develop. And in time, I suppose, and I have a love for law, which is you just read, right? The rule of
Mhm.
God and the
Right.
rule of law. It's just, there's so many similarities. It's just rules that you're able to read. And then it just
Yeah.
became, before you know it, the judiciary. It just mushroomed.
So you did your schooling here or back in India?
No, no, no. I did it here. I did my undergraduate degrees are from University of Houston. I graduated
Mhm.
with a Bachelor of Science in Political Science and Psychology. I double majored. Thereafter, I went to law school. Here, there's a private law school known as South Texas College of Law, where I received my doctorate of jurisprudence, and then you get licensed, and that's how you become a lawyer. But interestingly, right now it's taking a while, a little in between whenever I can. I'm taking a master's course right now in theology. And so, but I'm not finished. I have a long way to go. I'm just taking a class here and there at Houston Christian University. It used to be known
Okay.
as Houston Baptist University. So whenever I don't consistently take it, but I take a class here and there to hopefully get my
Oh,
master's in
that's
theology.
awesome. Oh, I don't know how you're managing being a
It's
Jerjan and
cool.
also
It's a long plan.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
But other
were
than
there?
that, that's my educational background and story.
Okay, more way to go.
So it's just in personally, it's my husband and I, and we love pets, and we have two little cats. And then personal life, I love to work out. Interestingly,
Mm-hmm.
I love to lift weights, and I do that because of my nephews. My nephews
Oh,
trained me from a young age, younger time when they were young to do this, and now it's in me. And it's a way that
oh,
I bond with them whenever I can talk to them about it. So I bond with them that way.
okay. So, do you all go together to the gym?
Yeah, we used to. Lately, the boys are, a little bit more busier. Both from my brother and sister side, they would
Yeah.
work out here and there, but now they have a little bit more life. But if I say it, they will. Like on special days, on a birthday, I was like, let's work
Mm-hmm.
out together. It's my birthday. They'll come and
Yeah,
you know, it's like an incredible moment for me.
that's good. That's good. So, did you ever had mentors or role models who shaped your path?
Absolutely. There is always, and I know I keep bringing it back to God, but it's the truth. It's There's always someone in our life that will just guide you here and there. I had people when I first started practicing, like inside the courtroom. There's a lot of technical little things, from the most basic thing of how to answer what's called docket call to lodging your objections. I've had lawyers who are seasoned that really helped me, just to be kind. There were some tough lawyers I had to really deal with sometimes, some not so friendly lawyers, but I've always had someone that has always helped me out. I've had, when I was a private practicing lawyer, or I would have managing attorneys that would help me, or I would when I was working at the district attorney's office, we have what's called chiefs, because they
Mm-hmm.
were semi law enforcement. Being a public prosecutor, semi law enforcement. So we had chiefs who were very helpful. And even if I wasn't directly working for a particular chief, if people notice that you have interest in what you do for a living, or like to read something, or you have respect for the law, it's amazing how someone always comes from the side to help you, to inspire you. And so
Mm-hmm.
then I also had my siblings. Also, I watch, growing. My brother's a lawyer also, and my sister has a master's. I watch how hard they work, how hard they would do it. And at home, and my husband doesn't like me overly talking about him, but it's not just a job you do for shamblam, when you
Mm-hmm.
are studying or when you're living. You do it because there's a greater call. And so I would see him study. I would see him, this is not about work, but even if it's about work, it's after work hours or reading. It just
Mm-hmm.
inspires me. So you get inspiration from the world. It's up to us to be open to who that inspiration is, with discernment, of course, but to be open to who is around us that is actually helping us, and take it.
Mm-hmm.
Be humble enough to, like, what, they do know something I can learn from. Always be a
Right.
student in life,
Yes. We are learning every day.
every day.
Yeah. So many young Malayalis watching today dream of careers and law or public service. What message would you share with them?
I would say to them, believe in yourself. You can do it. If you have interest in this, believe in yourself. If I can look back and tell myself when I was just a young law student or young undergraduate student, certain hard days that we had, and like, what am I doing? I don't know left from right. What am I doing? I would just tell myself there is something in us that we can do it. Believe in yourself. The most important thing I feel like is if you can find grit, grit inside you. meaning
Mm,
I don't know anyone that has had just a smooth ride. Maybe some people have. But if you
mhm,
have some challenges, rising up and persevering, that's where the foundation is made. That's where
mm,
the success comes from. When something bad happens and you rise again. In fact, if you're going to
mm,
get into graduate programs and all, try to do really well if you can. If you had an off day or off semester and there's something bad happening, what I would suggest is this. I think what would, if I were looking at an applicant, I would look at, hey, look at them. They started off kind of weak, but look how
mm,
strong they ended. They're
mhm,
working hard.
right.
Look how strong they ended. So never
Mm,
give up, because you know, as the career is school is going, classes get harder, right?
mhm,
But there's a
right.
maturity that comes from being a student for a while, and so
Mhm,
so never give up. You can do it, and there are people out here, me and others. There's so many that are ready to help y'all now. And when we started out, there's a lot of lawyers, younger lawyers right now. My brother and I started out. There was, I think, just a few other Malayali girls who were lawyers. There wasn't a whole lot. There was just probably a handful of us, five or six of us. Now there's a lot, and so
mm,
i- reach out to any one of us. We're here.
mm,
Believe in yourself, though. You had
yeah,
a tough day, tough semester. Do you just keep working.
yeah, right. So, as you begin this new chapter, what goals or priorities do you hope to focus on?
I mean, I hope to really just make sure that whoever comes in the courtroom before me,
Mm,
and the community knows that I know the law, that I will always study and have knowledge of the law. I'll keep up with it. Know that you have somebody sitting on the bench that respects the law. But more
mm,
important than that, when somebody comes into my courtroom, I want them to feel that they were seen, that I saw them, that I heard them,
mm,
that I respected them, that I followed the law in the end, even
yeah,
if it's a hard decision. But I will respect you, look at you, and know, and I know in my heart that you're going through a hard time, but I will
mhm,
apply the law fairly and uniformly, consistently.
yes. So, family law continues to evolve. How do you see the future of this field in Texas?
I have noticed that the laws that I've seen change are, there was a lot recently in September. Usually in odd years, there's new legislative laws that go into effect. And so it is evolving. It is taking into account the international factors, people traveling back and forth with their children, or even just property division, what all of that means.
Mm,
There's some real technical changes that are happening. Technology is
mm,
making things, is also evolving. Evidence is different.
mhm,
Evidence that now is brought in. There's some media aspect of it. So there's a lot of evidentiary rules that go to it to authenticate its credibility. And so
mm,
now the changes involve AI,
mm,
different text messages as evidence, photos as evidence.
mm,
But in between,
mm,
what I've noticed is the overall writing shift is happening to make sure the kids are protected in a better way. The
mm,
mental health services are offered. They're back in the day, especially in our community, and it still could. It was a shameful thing even to say anything about mental health. Um,
mhm,
but now it's becoming more of a common
mm,
phraseology.
yeah,
There's challenges that everybody has. So instead of shaming someone, perhaps we'll ask them to take a course and finish a
mm,
course that may not save the marriage, but what
mm,
we'll do is arm the person who's taking that course with just a little extra tools. So there's a
mhm,
whole social science aspect of what is evolving in family law. And then there's a
mm,
technology aspect of what is evolving
mm.
in family law. So all of that is coming together right now.
Gotcha. Are there any changes in the rules, or is it all like evolving as well, or is?
No. There are some rule changes as well. There's rule changes, for instance, like protective orders right now. If you file a
Mhm.
protective order, it could fall in. There's some rules on how which court it falls in and how that's assigned.
Mhm.
But in larger counties, like in Harris County, not in our county, they have a standalone protective order court. We don't have that here. But
Mhm.
now litigants can ask that case be transferred to this back to the court where that's hearing the custody case, that's hearing the divorce and custody case.
Mhm.
Before that, it was harder to transfer it. Now the transfers are happening faster.
Okay.
And there's a whole host of other technical rules that are in place right now, but lots
Mhm.
of it went into effect in September of
Mhm.
2025, and some that took effect January 1, 2026.
Gotcha. All right. So, and finally, what legacy do you hope to build through your service on this bench?
I have noticed all of a sudden I have more of a ability to reach larger groups of people. If this judicial position as an associate judge has opened some doors for me, what legacy? I'll be honest. If there's something about legacy, what I would hope is that I bring some attention to our sabhas, our Marthama Sabha and our Orthodox Sabha, both of them. Why? Because there's such a richness to our community, such a richness to our people that if I can be a conduit to bring the younger people back to, hey, why are we here? It's the same thing. It's the same routine things. Well, let's get back into it. And if I have a little platform to bring, like to open that door, I will do it. The other legacy, obviously, is if I can say that our people just highlight what our parents what they all went through, the hard work that I'll never be able to replicate what the parents did, coming from India to the US unless I go to the moon and create a community there. Like there's nothing I would do that can outdo what they did for us, right? So the
Yes.
legacy I would hope for, professionally, would be our people work super hard, our
Mm.
people are knowledgeable, and then we are incredibly passionate people, and
Mm.
put all of that together, and hopefully the kids or whoever the next group is, the next generations, they can just fly with it.
So, thank you, Judge Abraham, for being a part of our face to face India Live and Pravasi channel. And it was great talking to you, and we could know more about you. And all the best and best wishes for all your future endeavors.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Face to Face on Pravasi channel, brought to you by Plan for Peace of Mind. Make your choices now. South Park Funeral Home. Planning is determining the details of your funeral and cemetery services in advance. With a plan, you'll reduce stress and financial burden for your loved ones and simply let them honor and celebrate your life, knowing things are happening just as you wanted. Our complete services include cemetery burial spaces, funeral and memorial services, caskets and outer burial containers, memorials, headstones, opening and closing, safely home registered protection, personal consultation available by appointment. Call Sunil John Kora, the Community Relations Director, for an appointment at 18134099050. Email sunil.kora@nsmg.com, www.southparkfunerals.com.